Money FM 89.3, the best of the afternoon update. The Afternoon Update with Lin Li Fu.
Welcome to Industry Insights. I'm Nazirul Asrar. Behind the rise of global fandom lies a bigger shift. Companies are rethinking how media and entertainment businesses are built. One example is Dive Studios, which has gone beyond producing content to innovating around fandom, audio, culture, and even wellness. By turning their audiences into communities, it's scaling them into global businesses, from long-form podcasts to viral short-form clips, and even into wellness with its Mindset app. Dive is meeting the demand for content that's not just entertaining, but also meaningful and supportive. So what does this mean for the future of media entertainment, and what lessons can Singapore take away from this evolving creator economy? Joining me on the show today is Brian Nam, co-founder and CEO of Dive Studios. Welcome to the show, Brian.
Hello. Nice to be here. You got a great radio voice, by the way.
Thank you.
I'm very impressed.
All right. Now, Brian, the media and entertainment industry is undergoing huge changes right now. Mm-hmm. What do you see being the biggest shifts in how companies are creating and monetizing content?
Yeah, I think right now, like a lot of businesses have been built off of advertising. And I think still that's such an important part of any kind of, especially media companies type of business lines. But I think increasingly so, it's important to build that connection with the consumers directly. So how do you build that relationship with your fans, with your audience, and start to monetize directly? And I think it's more about how do you provide more value to the audience that enjoys your content. And so for us, that can be in the form of, events. It could be the form of merchandise or creating exclusive kind of experiences that our audience can participate in. So I think it's more about things are changing, but it's more about getting creative and staying nimble and making sure that you're kind of adapting to where the market's going. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's actually very well put.
Thank you.
All right, so now with fandom at the heart of Korean entertainment, how did you identify the potential in these communities to go beyond fandom and become a business model?
Yeah, I think maybe it might be helpful for me to share how we even started this business, because I think that kind of plays into it. So I was going to school in New York. I was at Columbia University studying finance. Ultimately dropped out my senior year to start this business with my brother Eric Nam, who's also a K-pop artist. And, at that time, I think we saw a huge need in the market to connect cultures, and specifically connecting cultures where there's all these global fans that didn't have the content that they needed to connect with K-pop and Korean entertainment. And the big reason for that was a language barrier. And so what we said is hey, let's create the largest English-focused media company that really caters to global K-pop fans outside of Korea. And so I think our first kind of focus was how do we create that value? And that value was giving them the content that they wanted to consume to better understand and know their favorite artists in this culture. And I think from there, I think the business opportunities kind of reveal themselves, right? So once you build this engaged audience in this community, then it's there's advertising, there's merchandise, there's commerce, right? There's a lot of different ways that you can start to get creative with how you make this into a functioning business. And so I think, because when we started, the landscape has changed so much. It's impossible to predict where everything's going to be in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And so just staying nimble, but I think the most important thing is stay close to your audience and make sure that you're listening to what they're telling you. And so for us, that surfaces in building a Discord community. We have over 50,000 members in a Discord, and we talk to them, we get their feedback, we hear from them what do they want more of. And that usually reveals the business and business opportunities where there's an exchange of value on both sides.
Okay, now let's dive into this structure, right?
I like that. Dive into it. Thank you. Was that?
Well, how do you structure and sustain these fan communities so that they create both, cultural impact and commercial value?
Yeah, I think going back to the earlier point, I think it's about providing value first to the audience, right? So I think for us, it's about, we do, last month we did, I think 75, 80 million monthly viewers. We typically are 60 to 120 million, somewhere in that range. And I think we wouldn't have been able to get to that scale if we thought too commercially on the onset. So I think going back to the basics of what kind of value can we give to this audience? And for us, it's content, but content in a specific way them getting to know their favorite artists in a certain way, or seeing their favorite artists play like fun games and building that chemistry with their other group members. So I think that's kind of the content that we give them. And then the secondary kind of factor of it is giving them the resources and the platform and the tools to sustain themselves, right? So I think there's only so much that we can do. We're a small company, and the fans, if you give them the right resources and the space to connect, they kind of help keep the engine going themselves, right? Our fans, our community, they're our biggest distribution engine as well. They're the ones that are the first to repost our content. They're the first to clip our content and reshare it on their socials. They're the first ones to share it with their friends. And so I think it's just about cultivating that community and giving them the tools, whether it's content, resources, whatever it is, to kind of build and sustain themselves. Yeah.
Well, Brian, you were being modest there when you said that you're just a small brand. In fact, Dive is pretty big.
Thank you. Thank you.
So on that note, from your own consumer data, what insights stand out and how can other media companies learn from them?
Yeah. So I think what I like to do is when I look at our audience is like understand who are we really trying to reach, right? And for us, we know that our audience is typically 80 to 85% female. Half of the audience tends to live in the US. About 30-40% is like in Southeast Asia. And then from there, understanding what kind of like insights, things that they're interested in. So we have all these data and insight tools. And we know that, for example, I think it's our audience is 4 times more likely to purchase beauty products than the traditional, just like average consumer. And understanding like what your audience is interested in, like our audience over indexes on beauty, retail, entertainment. And so that gives us the data to go to advertisers, right? And be like, hey, I think you guys should really be reaching this core audience. Here's all the data to show it. And to me, I look at it as our job is to matchmake. It's to provide value on both sides, right? If we can help a beauty brand get in front of these great audience and that audience like, oh, I just discovered this amazing brand that's going to help my life and I can use this product, it's a win-win for both sides. What we don't want to do is have the wrong insights, put the wrong brand in front of them that they don't really care about, and it's a bit of a mismatch. So I think it's just really understanding who is the audience that you're actually catering to.
Some great insights there.
Yeah.
So looking at it, in an industry dominated by video and visual first platforms, you're now leaning towards short form content such as Reels.
Yeah.
So on that note, right, I guess I have to ask, why is short form such a powerful way to engage with today's audiences?
Yeah. So we do both long form and short form content. I think like our content is largely video first. We do distribute audio only content on podcast platforms, but even on podcast platforms like Spotify, you can now upload your video version of the podcast. So I think the visual element of content is extremely important. I think when it comes to short form and its appeal, I think it is that kind of snackable, bite-sized content. And the way that we kind of think about short form is if you think of it as a marketing funnel, you have awareness, consideration, and then conversion, right? Short form is the best way to get awareness, right? It's going to have the most reach. It's going to have the most surface area. And it's going to start to kind of like tease the market of like, hey, here's a little bit of Dive Studios here and there. And what we've seen is that over time, like there's a lot of people that they're like, I just watched your TikToks for like a year and I never actually like went to your long form. But over time, they slowly make that conversion. I think long form for us is kind of the main conversion point and goal. Is like if we can take users down this journey into long form, we found that long form YouTube content is the most retentive and highly engaged audience that kind of stays loyal and always tuning in every week for that content. And so I think that's where short form has been so amazing. It's like it allows you to market and reach more audiences and kind of like an ad. It's like, hey, here's a little taste of this podcast that's an hour long. So before you invest an hour of your time, here's 30 seconds of it. And so I think for brands as well, they should kind of treat it in the same way of like, let me create a lot of short form content that just makes it very easy to understand and consume a little bit more. And you kind of take them down that journey until they find themselves like, oh, I love this brand, you know?
Then in that case, I have to ask though, how do you use that to make culturally specific content more accessible and relatable to a diverse global audience? Because like you said, it's supposed to be a 30-second ad that sort of promotes or leads people towards the long form podcast,
Sure.
right? So what are the so-called ways that you do that?
Yeah. So I think going back to, like I always say, the number one step is to really understand who are you trying to reach, right? And I always tell my team, like, really visualize this person. Like, what do they look like? How old are they? Where do they live? What are they listening to every day? Like, what kind of TV shows are they watching? And what we know is that our average viewer consumer, they're big fans of Korean culture, whether it's Korean music or Korean dramas, Korean film, Korean food, or Korean beauty products. Our kind of common thread is something about Korean entertainment and Korean culture that really appeals to our audience. And so because we know that that is the common thread, we keep creating content with those kind of hook points in it. And I think the right way to think about Instagram or YouTube or TikTok, it's not about just putting content and getting like 1 million followers that are all different, right? It's more about how do I use this platform to find the people that I'm trying to reach, right? So our goal is, hey, we know that we want to reach every single person that likes or enjoys Korean culture. And if we want to do that, then the type of content that we make has to have those kind of common threads in it, right? Because I think quality of content, it's subjective, right? It's like what one person could think is like awesome content, the other person thinks is horrible. And for us, we're like, we don't want to appeal to everybody, but we want to appeal to the people that really want this content. And so I think that's where some people can get a little bit distracted, where they try to appeal to everybody. And not only does it confuse the consumers, it confuses your brand and what you stand for, and also confuses like the algorithm. It's like, hey, like you keep giving me different types of content. I'm like, help me focus. And I think that's where it's important for people to really narrow in on like their target audience.
Okay, let's dive deeper into that as well. In that case, right, what are the challenges of relying on short form in a crowded attention economy, and how do you overcome them?
I guess over-reliance on short form. I think the key is like, don't just rely on short form. I think you have to kind of think of it as complementary to, like, you have to kind of think of it as a conversion funnel. So at the end of your funnel, what's the goal at the end of the rainbow? What's like that key thing that you want to give to them? And for us, like our biggest value is going to be these big blocks of content that we give to them, like a 20-minute YouTube episode or an hour and a half podcast. Like that is like the meatiest group of like value that we can give to our consumer. And so I would say maybe you just need to think of it as holistically. If you're only going to do short form, then I think it's a missed opportunity because it's all about storytelling, right? And there's only so much story that you can tell in a short form. So I think you use the different types of content in terms of like the different stages of like the consumer and the relationship that you have with them.
Let's move away from strategy and let's look at the business perspective. How does Dive Studios take advantage of this short form content when it comes to monetization?
Honestly, we don't really monetize our short form content as much. I think for us, the only way that we, I guess, build a business out of it is really expanding our audience reach, right? So we don't monetize it directly in the sense like we're not really making ad revenue, like not a significant amount from like shorts and things like that. It's more about getting the Dive brand out there and building brand equity, right? So when people hear the name Dive, it's like, oh, I've like, because honestly, there's all these like studies. I forget the exact number. It was like, it takes like someone to see your brand 20 times before they like remember it. There's like some stats around that, right? So it's like more of that constant seeding. And a lot of people I meet, they're like, oh, I see your clips just randomly on my feed all the time. You know what I mean?
That's me.
And, yeah, exactly, right? It's like, and it builds that relationship. So we have this kind of, it's like building relationships at scale is I think the benefit of short form. And it's what you do with those relationships at scale is where like the monetization or the business aspects come from it. So it could be an influencer that's reaching tens of millions of people, and then they decide to build a brand or products, right? So I think it just depends on what it is that you're trying to advertise or push to these relationships that you've cultivated at scale.
Well, so basically you're saying that you're not trying to monetize relationships, but instead you're trying to build them.
Build the relationships. And I think content is like, it is the biggest cheat code of like, I feel like we've known each other, right? Like people know you, even if maybe you haven't met them in person, right? They listen to Money FM and they kind of know of you. They know of the show. And when you meet them in person, there's like that kind of familiarity, right? Like I mentioned to you, like Diary of a CEO is like my favorite podcast. And I feel like if I saw Stephen Bartlett, I'll be like, oh, I like know everything. Like I watch him every week. You know what I mean? And I think that is what is so amazing about content is you can build those relationships without ever meeting people, which is like such a great tool that I feel like businesses and just people in general should be utilizing as much as possible.
Amazing. Okay, now let's take a look more into the wellness side of things. Now, Dive Studios, you came up with this thing called the Mindset app, which I think you and we had this off-air conversation. We were talking about how great it was, how you mixed wellness with entertainment. I just want to lightly touch on this. How did you balance authenticity with profitability when it comes to wellness?
Yeah. So we started Mindset in the middle of COVID, right? And I think going back to listening to your audience and your community, Dive Studios really took off during COVID. Like our numbers just like skyrocketed. And we had this Discord community and I was like running surveys and asking people in our community, like, why do you enjoy our podcast? They're like not the highest quality podcasts. Like the video quality is like pretty crappy. Like we're not using great cameras. But the thing that people really resonated with is like, you guys are the first media company to bring authenticity and like really show this different side of artists, right? Where you can hear their personal struggles, the things that they grew up with, and just like their perspective on life. And that built a different kind of relationship. And people found a lot of emotional support in that kind of storytelling. And so with that in mind, we kind of were like, I think we should build a platform dedicated to this type of more emotionally forward content. And so that's where we created Mindset, a platform where stories or celebrities are sharing mental health journeys and stories with their audiences. And the goal was, if we get more people of influence to share these kind of vulnerable stories, it'll normalize this conversation and actually show people like, hey, it's okay to not be okay. These people I really look up to and who I deem very successful went through the same things or very similar things as me. And so that's kind of where the genesis of like Mindset came from. And I think from like the profitability side of like how to monetize that as well, it comes back to like value. At the end of the day, like we need to fund this content, we need to produce this content. And we grew that app to 1 million users, right? And I think it goes to show like there's a really great value exchange between, hey, we really appreciate this content that you guys are investing into and making. And so that allows us to monetize and kind of bridge that gap between wellness, still operating as a business, but still, most importantly, I think with any business transaction, it's like there's going to be value exchange on both sides. That's how I think. It's like no one's just giving money away for the sake of giving money. And so I think our duty is making sure that we actually deliver on that value.
And also making sure that you guys are ethical at the same time. Well, that's great. And, I'm glad to hear that. Now, I want to circle back to culture, though, because we were touching lightly on that earlier. So because you guys sort of create this fandom communities, right? That's how Dive sort of built its business model. I was reading your website and it talks about how you guys focus on culture, connection, and community. So these are your 3 key things there. So how do you see Dive's role in shaping culture, not just producing content on a wider scale?
Yeah, I think like when I think about, okay, why does Dive exist? I think for me, the thing that motivated me to create Dive was connection, right? And I think specifically around connecting cultures. So I was born and raised in the US in Atlanta, Georgia. I didn't really connect with my Korean heritage until I got to college. That's when I really kind of made like my first close group of like Korean friends and like really start to understand and appreciate Korean culture and Korean music and everything it had to offer. And that's when it made me realize like the reason I kind of had that reconnection was through content and storytelling, right? And it could be as simple as like really cool music videos on YouTube, right? Or seeing really great variety shows, right? And like seeing really great K-dramas. Like I think that's the power of content, is being able to connect people around the world in a way that typically wasn't possible before. And so I think that's kind of where for us, we kind of position Dive as our job is to bridge cultures, specifically global K-pop fans, with this other side of artists and this culture that they love.
Well then, let's talk about the authenticity side. How do you balance authenticity with the demands of scale to make sure communities still feel genuine as they grow larger?
Ooh, some hard questions. So keeping authenticity as we scale, right? I do think nowadays, like, I know like the algorithms have changed a lot on socials. Like now it doesn't really matter how many followers you have or subscribers. And in my opinion, the good content will find the right people that want to enjoy that content. And so when it comes to keeping authenticity at scale, I feel like it's actually become much easier. It's like we're just going to create content that we feel like is true to us. And if it resonates with people, it'll find its way to that audience. You know what I mean? And I think, we've never not been authentic, and we've been able to grow this audience. And I think maybe in the past, it wouldn't have been as possible. But nowadays, it's like we've shown that, okay, us being our most authentic selves, it actually performs extremely well. And I think people appreciate that authenticity. Like, I actually think the more authentic you are in this day, especially with everything that's changing, the more that people resonate with you, right? And so I think even like a lot of our early fans, like we're not a typical studio that, had all the resources in the world when we first started. We were recording a podcast on my brother's kitchen table, right? I edited the podcast. If you listen to the first episodes of Tebok Show, it sounds like the mics are underwater. It's because I was the one doing everything. The first marketing asset, the cover art, I made it on PowerPoint. I didn't even know Photoshop was a thing. But that authenticity is at the core of like the Dive brand. And I think people love that. They appreciate it. It wasn't until literally like 6 months ago that we upgraded our cameras.
Oh.
We used to shoot in 1080p. Like,
I couldn't tell the quality, by the way.
I mean, it's 1080p and like everyone's doing like 4K and stuff. Yeah. And I was like, hey, like it's working. I was like, I told our team like, hey, like people are still watching the content. Right. You know what I mean? And I think there's actually a beauty to how laid back we are. So if you watch our YouTube content, our podcast on YouTube, we just have artists and celebrities just chilling on a couch, right? There's nothing more to it. Just chilling and having conversation. So, yeah.
And that's why you're such a big brand right now. And with big brands come global partnerships. I think recently you have like Spotify and Crocs. So what lessons have you learned about working with them in a way that still feels authentic to fans?
Yeah, I think that's exactly Dive's role in this ecosystem. It's because I think there's a lot of brands that, K-pop, everything's huge, right? Everyone wants to get into it. But the most important thing is like staying authentic to the culture and tapping into the audience in a way that actually shows that you took the time to learn and respect the culture, right? And so I think that is Dive's job, is to kind of be that translator into this culture of Korean entertainment and K-pop. And so when it comes to brands, like we've worked with Crocs, with Toyota, with Samsung, Delta, a lot of brands that we worked with. And our job is not only the execution of the campaign, but arguably even more importantly, like what is the right way to bring your brand into this community in a way that shows that it's respectful and you actually know that, okay, I want to add value to this community. So Samsung is a great example, right? They have been so gracious where they're like, hey, we want to invest into this community and we want to do meet and greets, right? So we've been doing meet and greets for them for the past 3-4 years. I think like maybe over 20 at this point. And we're flying K-pop artists in from Korea, and we're giving fans the opportunity to meet these artists in person for free, right? And that is like the power and influence that CMOs and executives have today. They have the ability to bring their brands into culture, not just by like media campaigns and stuff, but actually learning like what can I do as a brand that actually adds value to this community. For Samsung, it's like, let's like straight up bring these artists to the US. Let's help them connect with their fans who have never had the chance to meet them in person. Like that is like the most authentic version of itself. And then the fans, like they reciprocate the love, right? That's like what builds that brand equity, is like, oh, this brand has invested, I want to invest back, right? So I think it's like seeing those like genuine opportunities and moments where if that brand didn't do this, that fan would never have had the opportunity to experience it, which is like the most powerful thing, because then you become, as a brand, a part of the fan story, right? It's like, hey, I met Mark Twain. Why did I meet Mark Twain? Oh, Samsung. That was the best day of my life.
How did I meet Brian Nam? All that matters.
Exactly. You know what I mean? It's like, that is the most impactful way for a brand to put themselves into the narrative and story.
Yeah. Well, all that and said, I think we've learned a lot from you today. But before we let you go, what lessons can Singapore learn from Dive Studio's strategy, and also how you guys have positioned yourself as this bridge between cultures and even between businesses in the global scale? Maybe you can cut it down to 3 points.
Ooh, okay, 3 points. Okay, what can you learn? 3 things. Oh man, I don't know. Authenticity is a hot word, but I think genuinely just being true to yourself. And I think authenticity also showcases itself in terms of like asking for help, right? Like, I don't know every culture out there. And I think even when I come to Singapore, I'm the first one to be like, hey, like, I want to meet the people in this region that really understand how everything works. And I'm the first one to ask really quote unquote dumb questions, right? I just want to learn. So I think that authenticity and just kind of like just being real, you know what I mean? I think that's kind of at the core of what we do. I think second is community. I think community is like the backbone of like any organization. That could be the employees, like the team members of the company, but also like your consumers. Like cultivate that community, because that community is like what gives your brand meaning and purpose, right? It gives your brand an identity, right? So I think community. The third one is content. Yeah, I think content, relationships at scale. Like I genuinely think that's like the biggest arbitrage. You could spend $100 on a clip and that could reach 10 million people, right? It's crazy the amount of reach that you can have for minimal investment. There's no other kind of like investment that you can make that kind of gives you that ROI. And if you really study your craft of like what kind of content's resonating, what's like the hook rate, what's the completion rate, how do I keep getting better at content? It just keeps getting bigger and bigger, the ROI, right? So I think I'm still learning as well. So I could be wrong about all these things. Take it with a grain of salt. There's probably someone listening that's like, actually, I don't agree with anything this guy said. And hey, I still love you.
Aww. Money FM listeners, you know Brian Nam loves us. Okay, well, thank you so much, Brian, for your time today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Now, that was Brian Nam, co-founder and CEO of Dive Studios. That's all for Industry Insight with me, Nazirul Asrar.
Money FM 89.3